Okay, so you've picked your topic and you've got some of your supporting materials and you're ready to start writing this thing. Okay, but how do you do that? Well, probably one of the most common mistakes people make when they're writing a speech is they sit down and they start to write a paper. Don't do that. Okay. Reason for that is if you get in the mindset of you're writing a paper instead of writing a speech, a lot of things that you've learned over the years, like, paragraphs and all this stuff, is going to come up and it's not going to work. Instead, what you want to do is use a series of outlines that will help you effectively write your speech and then take those outlines and actually deliver your speech from them. And what those outlines are and what should be included in them and how they work is the subject of this video. All right, now, first and foremost, within this lesson, there's two documents that you might want to pull out and look at as we're going over these. These are the example preparation outline and the example speaking outline. You don't have to look at them while we're doing this, but it might be helpful just for some reference. So, as I said, when you write a speech, you don't tend to write it in paragraph format. You write it in outline format. Now, main reason for that is, remember, speeches are heard, not seen. And if you start writing it in paragraph format, you very likely will forget to do some things that you need to do in a speech that you don't need to do in a paper. Okay, you'll fall into that habit. So you write your speech using a series of outlines. And the first one of these is the preparation outline. This is the main one you use when you are writing and putting together your speech. And it is a detailed outline that you develop and build and expand while you are in the writing stage. And it needs to have full and complete sentences. Now, why is that? It's because this is where you first start to work out the wording of various things and think about how can I phrase this, that, or the other. And so writing in those full, complete sentences helps you do that. But what should be on a preparation outline? Well, a couple of key contents. And again, you'll see these referenced on the example outline if you're looking at it. Okay, first and foremost, you want to give your speech a title. Now, why would you want to give it a title? Well, admittedly, for class, it's probably not that big of a deal. But outside your class, a good, catchy title is one way to get people's attention and interest before you even start talking. Now, you don't stand up and in your introduction and go, the title of my speech is blah, blah, blah. No, you don't do that, okay? But very often when you're giving a speech in public, like at a conference or so forth, there'll be a program. And that program will have listed the title of the various speeches that are going on. And so that your title being there might be a way to get people interested before you even talk and maybe help get more people to come to your presentation than a competitor's. So a title's always a good thing to have, and that's good and catchy. The next two things you want on a preparation outline are your specific purpose statement and your central idea statement. Why? Well, remember, these are your roadmap and your directions of what this speech is going to be about. You want to put them at the top under your title so you can reference back to them and make sure you're staying in your lane. If you were going to give a speech about this, you're staying in that box. You're not drifting off into side areas, okay? So you want it there as that reference to make sure you stay in your lane talking about what you want to talk about. You also then want to clearly label with a label, introduction, body, conclusion. So you can clearly see where the different points of the speech are going to be on your outline. And you're going to use a structure, like an outline structure. Like I like Roman numerals for introductions, body, conclusion for those labels. And then within that, you're going to have, within the body, you're going to have that main points. Okay. So if Roman numeral 2 was body, and then you had 3 main points, they would be A, B, C. Like take, for example, with cars, with the hybrid vehicles we've used before, like A, hybrids by Ford. B, hybrids by Toyota. C, hybrids by Chevy. That's where you'd put your tags next to that capital A, B, C. Those would be your main points. And then the content within those main points is going to be subpoints. So typically how it would work is if you use Roman numerals for introduction, body, conclusion, and then capital letters for your main points, A, B, C, the subpoints underneath them would be standard numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's where you would put that content. And now the content within the introduction and the conclusion, you could just use those capital A, B, C, D because you don't have the main points. But again, see the outline if you're confused on that. Another thing you want to clearly have within the body of the speech on your outline is you want to be sure you label those connectives. As you see on the example outline, it's not part of the main point. It's its own thing, clearly labeled connective. This helps you make sure you include those. Because again, this is one of those things you need in a speech you don't need in a paper. A paper distinguishes different ideas by things like paragraphs. You don't have paragraphs in speech. You don't talk, paragraph. You don't say that, okay? So connectives help that function. In the end, you also want to have that conclusion with those points within it, okay? So the introduction with your capital A, B, C, D, the points in there. Roman number 2, body, capital A, B, C, your main points, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 subpoints underneath those. Conclusion, same thing. It's also a good idea to attach a bibliography to your preparation outline so that have all the stuff right there for where you found your information. Why this is important? Well, you might need to go back and look at it again when you're researching and you might not remember where it was. Also, not a half bad idea to have with you when you speak. So if somebody says, where did you get that such and such, you can just pull it out and go, oh yeah, it was here. And you can give them that information. Now, whether or not you use MLA style or APA style, that's kind of a personal decision, but it always helps. But what you want to be sure, again, you have a good visual framework in this outline so that it flows like an outline. And that's simply a pattern of symbols and indentations. All right. Some mistakes I often see students make on an outline is they'll use the symbols and everything, but they'll have it all squared, all left aligned. Use the indentations to mark the various parts. And again, so it's a pattern of letters and numbers with those indentations within it to help separate things. Again, see the example preparation outline if you are a little confused. Big thing to remember, though, is don't use bullet points. Okay, don't be picking like a solid dot for one thing and then a circular clear dot for another thing and then like a half triangle for another thing. No, use a pattern of letters and numbers. Don't use bullet points. Okay, again, see the example outline included in the lesson. But a big thing I want you to remember is do not give your speech from your preparation outline. It's what you use in writing the speech. It's not what you use in delivering it. Why is that? Remember, the class is called public speaking, not public reading. And if you go up there with an outline with full and complete sentences on it, and you try to deliver your speech from that, chances are exceptionally high you're going to get nervous. And when that happens, you will start reading your speech instead of actually speaking it. And when you start reading it, you start to get faster. And then the next thing you know, the speech that you practiced at home that was a good 5.5 minutes long, you speed through in 3 minutes. Okay, so don't give your speech from your preparation outline. Instead, what you want to do is convert your preparation outline into what we call a speaking outline. Okay. Now, whereas the preparation outline was very in-depth, the speaking outline is brief, okay? And the main difference here is whereas that preparation outline had full and complete sentences, speaking outline has key words only. Okay, so you wouldn't have a big old long sentence, you would just have a couple of keywords. The point of the speaking outline is not to tell you what to say, but the idea is you have practiced enough that those keywords will help you remember what you need to say and be a guide for that. Okay, so only keywords on a speaking outline. Now, you want to use the same visual framework that you used in the preparation outline. That's how you wrote the speech, so you want to keep your speaking outline in that same framework because it'll help you remember where things go. Now, there's several different ways you can bring your speaking outline up with you. But regardless of which one you use, you want to be sure it is legible. I've lost track of the number of times I've had students come up with handwritten speaking outlines only to get a couple minutes into their speech and mess up, and they all say, I can't read my own handwriting. Type it. Print it out. I do not recommend a handwritten speaking outline for those reasons. Now, how you can bring it up with you? Lots of ways. Some students just like to bring it up on loose leaf paper that they can flip over. Some like to bring it up with stapled so they can flip it like this. Personally, I have a 1/2 inch 3-ring notebook that has those plastic sheaves in them. and I print my speaking outline out and I put 1 page per sheet. Part of that's because I have dyslexia, and so I want to be able to flip easy and not have to look at 2 pages. But that's me. You don't have to do that. A lot of students like note cards. That's fine too. Recommendations with note cards, get the bigger size, not the small one, because if you get the small ones, you're going to be standing up like this and you're going to look all tight, whereas the bigger ones, you can be more out and relaxed. They also don't fly nearly as quickly, fly like a bird and whatever, a little bit heavier. But again, and I know it'll be, type your stuff out, print it out with note card spacing, cut it, and then tape it on the note cards. Don't handwriting. That's always an issue. And again, keep it brief. Keywords only. It's not there to tell you what to say, but just to remind you of what to say. But a big difference between a speaking outline and a preparation outline is on the speaking outline. And only on the speaking outline, you have delivery cues. What are those? A delivery cue is something you put on the speaking outline to remind you about some delivery mechanic that you need to do at that point in the speech. It could be something like point at audience, scale hands, get louder here for effect, something like that, okay? And you can put those on a speaking outline. What I do is I'll have my little keywords that are preparation outline, and those will be in black. And then next to that, typically in a color like red, I like red just because the contrast. You could also use like a dark blue. I write the delivery cue there, so I know it's not something I'm to say. That color difference helps me remember it, helps me pick up and do it. But particularly for those of you that have issues with gesturing, or you have a tendency to rock side to side, putting on there "stop rocking" or "this gesture" can really help you in including those. But they're only on the speaking outline. They're not on the preparation outline. It's one of the key differences between the two things. So big takeaways. Don't write a paper for your speech. It's a speech. It's not a paper. So use this outline method. I promise you, it's cheap. It doesn't cost any money. It's easier, it's quicker, and it's a lot easier to edit as well as not only put together. It's just much more effective. So use a preparation outline to actually develop your speech, and then convert it to a speaking outline when you deliver your speech. Now, how you can do that, typically when you start practicing, you'll start with your preparation outline. But then as you get more comfortable, you can start taking stuff out. What I tend to do, there's two broad methods here. You can start practicing with your preparation outline and then have like a Sharpie marker and start lining through stuff you can get rid of. Or you can kind of do the opposite and start with the preparation outline and highlight what you want to keep. But after you've practiced it one or two, maybe 3 times with that, stop, type up the speaking outline, just keeping what you need, and then go from there, continuing to edit it. And if you go through that process of preparation versus speaking, this will set you up fantastically, and not only in writing the speech, but delivering it in an effective way.